Yo, what up, what up, what up? It's your boy Roy, accompanied by the Dominican bad man Serge, aka the floor price guy. How you doing, my brother?
I'm good, brother. We got a special. It's not a show. It's actually an interview, so I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah. So in addition to our UFC fight night, Paris analysis, prediction, picks, bets, whatever, Moicano versus Saint Denis, we have a special guest today. We have MMA pro, currently 9-3, former Tough Enough contestant, season 31, Conor McGregor's number one pick. He describes himself as an artist. We have Mando El Toro Gutierrez.
Mando El Toro Gutierrez, fighting out of Murcielago MMA in Lansing, Michigan, and I'm here to tear it up and make a name for myself.
Mando, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
I'm good. We're great. Roy, so Roy's also Mexican. Um, how did you feel about the UFC Fear happening? What were your thoughts about that?
I thought it was phenomenal, man. It was a really cool event, and I was really skeptical on how it was going to play out because it seemed like there was a lot of things in motion, especially for it being their first one. But they pulled it off. They did a really good job. I feel like the actual broadcast side of it could have been a little better, but other than that, it seemed like a movie, man. It seemed phenomenal, and the fights were great, obviously. So it was cool.
Yeah, the homage that was paid was phenomenal. I struggled a little bit. Us East Coast boys, we struggled a little bit. It was a little bit difficult. But
Yeah.
Mando, I wanted to kind of ask you. I mean, first and foremost, El Toro, where did you get your nickname, and what significance does it hold for you?
Um. So it all started back when I was an amateur. I think probably like my third or fourth fight in. It was a couple of different things got mixed into one. So first and foremost, before anything happened, obviously like I'm Mexican. I was raised in Spanish. I speak mainly Spanish. So everyone on my team started like saying random Spanish words to me all the time, like just trying to learn Spanish because they heard me like speaking to my parents in Spanish and like being on the phone in Spanish all the time. And our logo for our team was a bull, and it was the Murcielago bull, right? So that's kind of, I think that's how people got the idea. But what really did it was my fourth amateur fight, and I was only 3-0, but I took a big jump in competition, and I fought a dude that was 11-2, and I was like, but I was ready to go. For me, it was the time to show what I could really do, and I wanted to take that big step, and I went out there and I did my thing and I performed really well. So when I finished him, I was just super fired up. Herb Dean is my ref. It's the first event. I'm fighting in front of like 3,000, 4,000 people at the first ever Lights Out Championship. So I'm super fired up. So I just run like wall to wall, dead sprint and headbutt the cage. And then I run back the other way and headbutt the cage. Run back the other way and headbutt the cage. And they're like, "Dude, you look like a little fucking bull." By the way, can I cuss on here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
you're
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah, be
yeah.
yourself, bro.
They
You're good.
they slip out from time to time. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. And they were like, "You're like a little bull." And then I forgot who it was. Someone was like El Toro, and I'm like El Toro Gutierrez.
That's
El Toro
amazing.
Gutierrez. And then I was like, dude, that just it couldn't roll off the tongue any better. I'm like, that's it right there, bro. I'm sticking with it.
No,
So
that's good, man.
I'm
A lot of
lucky that I got a good one.
Yeah, and a lot of people try to force nicknames, right? It's always great when it comes naturally, like with an event like that, with the story to tell behind it. Because a lot of
It,
people are like, oh, they just started calling me that for no
it,
reason. So, yeah, man, it was meant to be.
yeah.
Yeah, brother. I wanted to ask you, with a record of 9-3, I wanted to ask you, which fight stand out the most in your career?
Obviously, a big fight for me that stands out the most is the first fight after my first professional loss. Well, my first loss ever was I lost to Mo Miller, and obviously that was a big fight. It was a really fun one, even though I lost, because it was two surging guys, tough fighters that just had to clash because we couldn't find an opponent. But my first fight after that was about 6 months later. I took the time to myself. I really gathered my thoughts and figured out what I was doing wrong, really popped the hood and made sure everything was running on all cylinders before I hopped back in there. And when I did, I was battling a lot of mental shit. I just lost for the first time. Everyone's watching, seeing how I'm gonna bounce back because how you stand back up is what's gonna define you. And I knew that going into that fight. So uh, I was fighting a lot of demons in my head going into that one, and I really went out there and performed. I didn't fight the smartest, but it made for a phenomenal show. Like I went out there and got dropped in the first 10 seconds, and I'm playing catch up for the rest of the round, and I finished them before the round's even over. I went from almost getting finished to getting the finish, back and forth. So it was really cool, and it was actually the most viewed fight on UFC Fight Pass for
Nice.
like 2 months after that.
And that's LFA. So I wanted to ask you, because how was that transition? Because that was your first fight after during the pandemic. So what were prepare, because there is a mental aspect of the game being like social distancing,
Yeah,
train, COVID. Like, what were if you remember at all? Right, it's been a
yeah.
while.
Bro, my favorite time. The thing about me is like it doesn't matter how long it's been. I remember every detail about every fight. I remember every emotion, everyone I talked to. I remember the conversations I had. It's like every fight is a movie. Every fight is a movie to me, and I remember every single detail about them. But during COVID, that was my favorite time to fight. I loved everything about it. I loved the preparation because there was no distractions whatsoever. You're just training all day. There's nothing else to do. You're training, and yeah, I mean, you're getting basically free money. So I'm just sitting there training my ass off, and then an opportunity comes up, and I was one of the few lucky ones that got to fight during that time. But when you talk about actually being in the cage when there's nobody around and it's in a quiet arena, and you hear these punches and you hear everything, like I loved it. I loved it because it gave me an extra little bit of edge because I could feel my opponent quitting. I can hear him giving up. I would gain that energy faster. So it was a totally different demographic or a totally different like circumstance of a fight. And I also love the fact that to me it felt completely natural because I come from a wrestling background, and sometimes they're loud, but usually you're wrestling in an empty gym with like 30, 40 people there, which is about what COVID fights were.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was second nature to me.
And now that we're kind of going into that aspect, I did want to kind of ask you, what's your typical training regimen leading? I'm going to ask you leading to a fight, and then I'll ask you kind of like off season as well.
I'll make it real easy for you. Nothing
Yeah.
changes for me. I love training hard. Like it's just like I've wrestled my whole life, so I'm used to a heavy workload. I work my ass off. I train my ass off every day. Like if I'm cutting hair, I'm tattooing, I'm graffitiing, I'm going to practice, I'm coming home, eating and going out and doing it again. I have to stay busy, bro. That's just my thing. And nothing changes for me. The only thing that changes is the diet. That's the one big difference between fight camp and out of fight camp. That and probably recovery as well. I'm in the sauna more. I'm in the ice bath more. I'm getting massages every week instead of bi-weekly. Cairo more than normal. Everything. So, I think that's the biggest difference. But the training regimen is heavy 24/7. You can count on that.
Yeah. So when it comes to like mobility, are you foam rolling it every day? Like,
Oh yeah, people for whatever reason, like people think it's so weird. Like when they hang out with me, they'll come over and we're watching TV or whatever. We're just chilling, and then next thing you know, I pop up on the floor and I just start stretching. But to me, that's second nature. Like if I'm my mind is blank, my mind is empty. I'm just watching a show or something. Why not stretch? Like I'm just sitting there anyways. I might as well. So
Yeah.
like, it's not uncommon for me to sit on the ground and stretch for an hour or two, or like the entire length of a movie, especially close to a fight. But I made that a habit throughout my whole career, and that's why I have this flexibility that helps me out a lot in my fights and my jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and speaking about that, I wanted to kind of ask you, like, um, are you trying to catch 2 workouts a day and technique work? Like, what is a typical besides work? Because I know then it's you've managed to weaponize basically. I think a little all of us have a little bit of ADD in terms of like what we do, but you do
Yeah.
a lot, like the barber, the tattoo, even when you work out. So how many workouts are you getting a day? How are you kind of balancing that in?
Lucky for me, everything in my life works in unison. You know, it's almost like yin and yang for me. So I wake up, I try to get 2 sessions in every day minimum. But I don't count road work as a session, like running or cardio or sprints or anything. I don't count that as a session. I don't count recovery as a session. To me, sessions are strictly going to practice, practicing a technique, or going live or doing something like that, or sparring or whatever the case may be. So on a typical day, I'll wake up, I'll do my morning haircuts, like do like 4 or 5 cuts, and then I'll go to my first practice, whatever it may be, you know, strength and conditioning, boxing, whatever. Usually the morning one is the one that's a little bit lighter. My heavy practices are at night. I'll come back home. I'll eat a little bit. I'll do my afternoon haircuts or middle of the day haircuts, and then I'll go out to my studio and start drawing or like graffitiing or whatever. If I have any pieces in like that I have to do for people, like commission work, I'll do it. If not, I'll just draw around for fun. Or if I got a tattoo client, I'll do that. And then go to my afternoon practice. And then my afternoon practice is, you know, 2 hours of like hard nose practices. And I get that one in, and then if it's getting close to a fight, I'll go do road work or sauna or recovery after that, whatever the case may be. And then I come home, got a nice plate of food waiting for me. I'll
Oh,
chill with my girl and go to sleep.
love it. And I
Yeah.
gotta ask, right? Um, what do you walk around? Like, what's your weight? If you don't,
Ah,
if you don't, well, we don't have to do that. We could just we don't
no,
have to.
it changes. It changes from time to time. It depends. Lucky for me, I stay really busy. Like even if I don't have a fight, like for example, next weekend or this Friday, actually, I got a jujitsu match. Um,
Nice.
Luckily, I've been getting paid for these jujitsu matches now, so I can actually cut a little bit of weight for those too. But
Nice.
I'm always staying a little bit lighter, so I probably stay around 50 to 55 always. Um, if I don't have anything on the horizon for a few weeks, I'm probably up to 165, just because that's where my body's recovering the best. People think that it's like, oh, he's eating whatever he wants. That's not the case. The case is I'm super hydrated. I got my creatine in me. My water is my water levels are really good. I'm eating good. I'm recovering well, and your body's just recovers way faster when that's the case. So it's nice to be able to do that, but you don't always have that luxury. So typically, I got to keep it a little bit lighter, and then I won't be in the 140s until I'm like 2 weeks out from a fight, and then I'll see
Wow.
140. Yeah,
Oh wow. And like you're still growing. Like your body is still growing, and you're young.
yeah.
And I was gonna ask you, what are your thoughts about flyweight? But you're telling me the way. I don't think it's a big dive down to go there.
Oh yeah, it's out of the picture completely, man. I've heard that a lot, and the thing is, like, it's because I'm shorter than some flyweights. Some flyweights have the same upper body I do, but I used to. What people don't know is like before I got into fighting, I was a power lifter, and I
Oh,
was bodybuilding and stuff. So I got really big, dude. I was 200 pounds,
oh
and
wow.
when I first started training, I was like 180 with abs, and I was squatting like 600 pounds. I have videos of it. People never believe me, but I have videos, and I put
Yeah.
them up before, so like it's out there, and I got these big ass legs. I can't help it, you know. Like I'd have to cut a lot of weight to make it. And I actually did a DEXA scan where they scan your body completely. It's like a super high tech, you know, body composition program thing, and it
Yeah.
tells you the lowest you could possibly get. And for me, with no disposable water, super low body fat, like 5%, 4% body fat, I would get down to 132 pounds. So
Oh wow.
I couldn't possibly touch 125.
It's not optimal for you, unfortunately. And like for example, you're like you said, you're very active, so it doesn't kind of really make sense. Because I will be asking you about kind of like the tough fight,
Yeah.
because Cody Gibson was a big man. Like it was and lengthy, and I'll get into that. But I wanted to ask you, team, You said murcielago, but our Spanish people, murcielago, right?
Yeah, murciélago.
Murcielago. How did you end up there?
So I was living in Chicago at the time, and I got to the point where I realized like I wrestled my whole life and I had nothing to show for it, and I felt like I didn't want it all to go to waste. So I was 100% bought in on fighting. I had nothing left for me here in Chicago. I feel like my time had ran out there, and I wanted the next thing. So I started looking online at the rankings, and in the Midwest, like there's a on Tapology, there's a U.S. Midwest ranking, which is like
Yeah.
everyone in the Midwest area. And this random ass team, Murcielago MMA, had the number one guy at every weight class except for 135 pounds and 145 pounds. And I was like, okay, cool, that's gonna be me.
That's cool.
And I made my mind up. And within a week, like from the day that I found out about them, um, to the day that I left, it was only a week. I packed my car up and I dipped. I had no house, no friends, no family, no job, nothing out there. Like I was prepared to go out there and just stay in my car and start training and stuff. But luckily, God blessed me and He took real good care of me. And when I got there, everything worked out. I found a job as soon as I got there. I found some friends that let me stay with them, and things just happened to work out really well. And I've never looked back since. But now obviously I'm a little older. Life starts unfolding and things change. So now I've also been splitting my camps with Valley Flow Striking in Chicago, which is one of the best teams in the world. Obviously, they have multiple champions, Bilal Muhammad, Yair Rodriguez, Juliana Pena, and a ton of UFC fighters like Halaba Hamondes. And I've been training with some of the best in the world. So it's been nice to have that balance between those two teams and just do my thing with both of them.
And that's good. And that's what I was gonna say. Like now you're kind of surrounded with, because I know Joaquin Buckley is
Yeah.
from Team Murcielago, right? But now you've got those people. So it'll rub. You get to see the patterns and everything. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think of MMA and how has it evolved since you started?
It definitely has evolved a lot. I feel like when I got in at the tail end of the what we call the Wild West days, where people would just hop in and fight. Like it wasn't uncommon for somebody to just get called out of the crowd to fight, like at the weigh-ins. They're like, "Hey, anybody want to fight tomorrow?" They hop them out, like pull them up there and weigh in right then and there. And people weren't scared. People weren't protecting their records. People weren't doing this and that. But the demographic kind of changed, and um, people people are starting to take care of their records a little more. You're seeing a lot more padded records, people ducking fights and doing all this weird stuff. I've personally never said no to anybody in my life, so it rubs me the wrong way when you can't find a fight, or it's getting tough out there for people to find fights. And people can't advance their careers that way, and it's kind of hard when everybody's just trying to protect all their eggs, and it rubs me the wrong way. But I mean, I love this game, I love everything about it, but from a technical standpoint, I feel like it just keeps getting better and better, man. Now you're at the age where these kids have been doing this from the time they were born. They never played any other sport. This is their sport. So it always raises the bar, but that's cool. That's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with competition, and it just forces everybody to be better.
Well, and also with your record 9-3, one of the things, and shout out to Topology, where we were able to kind of see, and you've been facing, very tough opposition these last couple of years,
Yeah.
right? Regional in the UFC, like, and it's impressive. It really is. And then you kind of go and see what those fighters have fought. So shout out to you, man, for not what do you call it, padding your record, because there's so much of that.
Mando, I wanted to go back to your first experience when you walked into the gym, because I heard you on the Something in the Water podcast, and you talked about how when people first walk into the gym, they kind of rough them up a bit to like kind of see where their heart is, to kind of see if they come back. So can you explain to us a little bit of your first experience when you walked in? Did they give you a shake-up?
So like I said, when I got into the game, it was the tail end of the Wild West days. So things were a little bit different, and especially at my gym. My gym's really rough around the edges. We're typically the outcasts at other gyms, where, like, for example, Joaquin, he's the kind of guy that, like, everyone says, oh, he's a terrible training partner. He's horrible to train with. He can't be coached, this and that. People have always been saying that stuff about him, but he fit like a glove at our gym, because we're all like that. We're all a little rough and rowdy. So, when I first got to the gym, they definitely wanted to see what I was about, and my gym is pros only. So I was the first amateur to ever be allowed to train at Murcielago MMA, which was a huge blessing for me. But the only reason they brought me in was because they didn't have a little guy that knew how to wrestle that could bring that to the table and teach all the pros how to wrestle. So when they brought me in, I was the only other guy that could do that. And they put me to the test right away. The whole first week, they were like, hey, try to take this guy down, try to take this guy down, this guy down. And I'm talking about 170, 180, like middleweights, welterweights, everything, even light heavyweights. Like I'm in there wrestling with absolutely everybody. And in my first week, they had me spar Chaos Williams with little gloves on, no headgear.
Ooh.
Yeah, Chaos Williams, little gloves on, no headgear. So, I mean, Chaos has always been Chaos, regardless of his record being what it is now. Even when he was 0-0, like I was going with him when he was at pro debuting, and same guy. I mean, that pop didn't show up out of nowhere. He's always had bricks for hands, and and I have that video on my phone to this day. I told him I'm waiting until he cracks the top 15 to drop that video, because
there you go.
Yeah, or when we're both in the UFC, I'll hit people with the footage, But I got beat up pretty good. I remember Troy Lamson leg kicking my leg off completely. I couldn't walk for almost a week, but I kept coming back, and that's when they gave me their respect after that.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And I remember you saying that speaks a lot to the heart, right? To the heart, and to kind of like the going back to we were talked about the spear, kind of like the warrior mentality, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good to know. It's good to know who's around. Harley, come here.
Yeah, bring him over.
Harley.
Vibe.
My dog's tripping. Harley, come here.
Yeah, no. I'll ask you very quickly. When it comes to like, who are your mentors? Any role models throughout your career?
Obviously, my head coach Joaquin Rodriguez has always believed in me. He's always been a great role model for me. From the beginning, I told him, I'm like, you're too good of a coach to not have a world champion. I want to be that for you. Obviously, there's guys in there that have been able to, reach the pinnacle of the sport, crack the top 15, make it all the way. He's coached world champions before, Rashad Evans. Now he's creeping up there with Buckley and other guys. But I definitely want to hold true on that promise. Another guy would be like a fellow Michigander, Cody Stamen, who showed me that there's a whole other level past everything that's around here. Because he was the first guy to take me to the UFC PI, show me the ropes, show me how to train properly, recover properly, how to break down film, like all the things that people think that they know, but they don't really know. So I owe a lot to him. I've always looked up to him, and I have nothing but respect for him in the cage and out of the cage. He's a great guy. And I've always looked up to him on both fronts. So he's another guy. Obviously, my coach, Mike Bailey, another guy. And I've just been blessed to have a ton of great training partners and people around me to be able to learn from. Most recently, Gray Maynard moved to Lansing a couple years ago, and I linked up with him, and we've been two peas in a pod ever since. Like he retired when he finally felt like he had the full system down. Like he finally felt like his technique was on point, diet was on point, everything. And luckily, I've been there for him to give me all those cheat codes. He tells me what to do, and I do it, and I listen well because he's done everything I want to do, and I know that if I listen to him, he can take me all the way. So shouts out to him. I just got mad love for everybody around me, man. I'm one of those people that I appreciate every single person that puts anything into me, and even leading by example, I appreciate that as well because I like to be that kind of guy as well.
Oh, that's amazing. And Gray, like, shout out to him, like coming up, same thing, right? Wrestler, coming from TUF,
yeah,
right. To you could he debatable. He beat Frankie Edgar, right? Like it was that. Yeah, excited for that kind of
he beat him. Let's be real.
He beat him. I was just I'm a Frankie guy. Like I
love Frankie too, but he beat him. He beat him.
Yes, it was. It's interesting because there were multiple 10-8s, right? And so there's so much you could do.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you before I get to the TUF. I know you were kind of saying that you have a jiu-jitsu fight coming up.
Yeah.
You had a fight scheduled for April, and it ended up getting canceled. When do you anticipate your next upcoming MMA fight happening?
So my fight that got canceled in April, that was just my original opponent, but luckily they found a short notice replacement, and I was able to fight. But ever since then, I was supposed to have another fight in September, for Fury, and it was supposed to be against a Olympian, a wrestling Olympian from Cuba, and it was going to be a tough match, a tough fight, and he like unfortunately he couldn't make it. He had some travel issues and whatnot. We tried to rebook it the following week, and all we heard was crickets. So think what you want about that, but unfortunately the fight never happened. So I took off to Thailand for a little bit to go train with Kaya Sakura. That was a cool opportunity, to go help him get ready for his fight coming up. And it's been a blessing, man. It's been a blessing. So now I'm just waiting to see what happens. I'm trying to stay as active as possible. I'm waiting for a fight. I'd be willing to hop in on whatever. We're looking at Japan. We're looking around here.
Nice.
We'll see, honestly. I mean, but like I said, that's the luxury of the way I train. I'm always ready, so I can hop on anything.
No, I love it. I wanted to kind of, ask you about the Ultimate Fighter. Basically, vets versus prospects.
Yeah.
Did you know, like, for when you got the call, did you know that you guys were going to face prospects? Like,
No. We showed up. I thought it was gonna be a normal season. It didn't matter to me who it was. I was ready to go out there and win the whole thing. That's the best I've ever looked, the best I've ever felt, and I was ready. But once we get to the hotel, the first dude I see is Jason Knight, and then I look over, I see Cody Gibson, and then I keep looking. I'm like, that's Chris Moutinho over there, huh? What the fuck? Like, this is kind of weird. And then the next day hits, and the next day hits, and then all of a sudden, I mean, you're stuck in a hotel for a whole week before the show even starts because they're still like doing the final cut downs. They bring 24 guys for, 12 spots, so they're cutting everybody down, or 16 spots. I mean, they're cutting everybody down as you go, and you're just hoping you're not one of those dudes that gets cut. So you're trying to make a good impression, do all you got to do, but you're just stuck on your phone. So I'm just scrolling through Instagram, and I'm seeing all the rumors, this and that, and next thing you know, prospects versus vets, and that's where I see it, and I'm like, huh, okay, that makes more sense. I was just, from that point forward, my only question was, how's the tournament structure going to work?
Yeah.
Is it going to be the winner of is it going to be a prospects tournament versus a vets tournament, and then the winner of each faces each other, or is it going to be 1-1? Are they going to seed the whole thing, or how's it going to go?
Yeah.
If you ask me, I feel like the structure was kind of weird, but it is what it is.
Yeah, well, and like you said, you didn't mind. Anybody can get it, baby. But at somebody that's seen the show for, like, similar to the Ultimate Fighter season 1, when you had Randy and Chuck, man, seeing a lot of those faces, I was just like, what is, even Roberts is fighting this weekend.
Yep.
So it was just really like, oh man, like, I gotta ask, like, what did that felt like? Because for you it's good, but mentally you don't know for the other cats how they feeling, how they train.
For me, the way I thought about it was, either way, whether it's now or whether after I win this Ultimate Fighter and get my shot at the UFC, I'm gonna have to fight these guys anyways. So if I can't beat them now, I can't beat them later. And that's why the same thing happened with me and Cody fight. I'm the number 1 seed on my team. I'm expecting to fight the number 4 seed on their team. But obviously, Michael Chandler wrestled his whole life. He knows what he's doing. He knows how a bracket works. He's gonna seed his best guy number 4. So they chopped the head off the dragon right away. And in my opinion, the second that the fights got announced, or the second that the teams got announced, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be me and Cody Gibson in the finals. I knew that going in. I wrote it down. I talked to everybody about it. I knew that it was going to be him and I going into the finals. With all due respect to everybody else, I knew that we were the 2 best guys in that house. And it didn't work out like that. We had the finals in the first round. So it is what it is. Obviously, the fight didn't go my way, but I was prepared for anything. And I still feel like I fought as good as I possibly could have. But when people go Super Saiyan, there's not really a whole lot you can do about that, I got hit with a perfect once-in-a-lifetime move, and it is what it is, got to take it on the chin and keep it moving.
And one of the things I was telling Roy is that, in the fight, it was figuring him out, but then you started catching the distance, like the leg kicks were landing. You were starting kind of putting it together, kind of going into that fight. So I like, how much bigger was he than you? I was gonna.
I thought he was just tall. I didn't necessarily think he was bigger than me. I love Cody. He's a cool ass dude. We really hit it off, and we became really good friends since the show. But that dude, at the time, I didn't realize that somebody with that many fights did it and had wrestled at a collegiate level had no idea how to cut weight. I watched him struggle so bad to make that weight. Even though I didn't think he was the biggest 35er ever. I just thought he cut weight kind of weird. And so when at the weigh-in on the show, I'm bouncing up and down and I'm looking at him dying. I'm looking at him in the face and I'm like, dude, you are sucked out, you're dry and you're dead, you're cramping. So I just jumped up and down to like piss him off a little bit. Obviously, it didn't really work out and it didn't make much of a difference, but I just wanted to show him. I'm like, dude, I'm fresh, dude. I'm big too, and I'm fresh and I'm ready. And I didn't feel like he was bigger than me, but I felt like I had the advantage going into it because I knew I would be more recovered. But I got to give it to him. He felt recovered the next day. He was keeping up. Nothing was really hurting him other than the kick. The kick actually tore. I believe it was his ACL or MCL, something
Oh,
like that. I
wow.
kicked him in the leg one time and it tore up his knee pretty good. And I knew the leg kick hurt him, but I knew that he was way too tough to stop. So it wasn't gonna compromise him anyway.
Yeah, no, and thank you for sharing that. Right, like I was gonna say, like when you check the fight, like he significant taller, and your range, you were getting in there, and yeah, and like you said, because I've never seen Cody Gibson throw a knee, right? So I would have loved to see what would kind of unfolded the second round after that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
it is what it is. I felt like I was starting to swing the momentum and stuff like that. I knew he was going to be tough. I knew it was going to be tough to get a finish. I would have liked to see what would have happened if I got him on the ground, but shoulda, coulda, woulda, On to
yeah.
the next one, and I just kept it moving. So, you can only take it and learn from it, and just hope you fall forward, or not hope. Make sure you fall forward, and that's what I did.
Yeah, and biggest lesson of that particular fight. What came out of that fight?
Um, Distance management. Don't if you're not bent over, you're not gonna get kneed in the face. So I think a big thing was being able to keep my posture straight up and down, like my in and out movement and lateral motion. I felt like I was doing a good job at controlling the distance and controlling the pace of the fight. Um, but those things happen, and I just had to be more. I had to make myself less susceptible to eat knees or to eat anything like that because big moves like that can happen, and if you're not careful, they will happen.
And was that something? Because and I'll ask you about the structure and tough, but I would assume after you got kind of back home, that's when you're okay. Well, we need to work on this because future opponents could have they're going to be similar. So
Yeah.
there's something you worked after. Basically, once you got home, let's try to fix this. Let's try to make improvements or
Yeah.
minimize the percentage of not happening again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't even have to wait till I got home. I right after the fight, I watched the film like the next morning. That because obviously that whole night I was in the hospital. I had some pretty serious health issues after that fight. It tore my orbital wall in my eye. Um, so my eye was just floating around in there, uh, which was a pretty big deal. I was seeing really blurry every time I looked up. Like I had some issues, so it was pretty scary, and it messed up my neck. It herniated the disc in my neck a little bit more than I already had. So yeah, it was a pretty scary situation. But even though I had a big blown up ass eye and a huge cut right here, I hopped right back in the gym on Monday and started drilling and working and trying to make sure that I don't make that mistake again. This game's all about reps. So regardless of how banged up or beat up you are, you got to rep it out, and you got to be able to, put yourself in a position where you're getting better every day, no matter what, one way or another.
That's a great mindset. I wanted to ask you, what was it like participating in the Ultimate Fighter?
I mean, bro, I grew up watching it, so it was such a blessing, man. It was a dream come true for me. It was something that not a lot of people get to do, and I was just super thankful to be there. Super thankful to be able to compete. Obviously, I wish I could have came home with the win, but it is what it is. It's still a once in a lifetime opportunity and something I'll have with me for the rest of my life. Definitely one of the coolest experiences I'll ever have.
Yeah. And what was one of the biggest lessons that you kind of took away from that experience?
That every fighter has their own thing. Every fighter has their own why. But for me, I learned that although I fight for the people around me and I love all my people and everyone that knows me knows that that's what drives me. I learned that within, I'm a lot stronger than I gave myself credit for, because in this particular case, I had to lean on myself heavy, to lean on myself and my mindset to get through these fights, because usually I find that externally with the people around me, the people that believe in me, and this time it was 100% on me. So it really taught me that, I got to give myself credit for where the position that I put myself in, and the kind of fighter that I am, and I learned a lot mentally. So I think the mental gains that I brought home after that, after being secluded for that long, it was almost like I was in a retreat or something. I came home and I was spiritually, mentally, physically better than ever, and I came home a whole different person after that.
That's amazing. And so and that's the other thing too, right? Because you basically spend 2 to 3 months. How many months would you say it was? 2 to 3?
8 weeks.
8 weeks. So yeah, so 2 months with everybody isolated, no internet. You get what's kind of given to you,
Yeah.
right? So like any, how do you call it when it comes to this? How did you see others react to kind of breaking points, and you had the proper 12 there and liquor and
Yeah.
yeah, what are your thoughts about that, right? Because we're human at the end of the day.
I feel like that season in particular was probably, and this is not my words. This is the production team's words. We're one of the most professional casts they've ever had, and I think that had a lot to do with the
Yeah.
fact that you had the veterans in there who have already been there. They're not surprised. They're not taken back by any of this. They're not. They're not phased by the lights. So they went out there. They were handling their business. And on the other side, you got the top prospects in the country or in the world, really, and you brought some of the best guys in, super elite. So everybody in the house was really professional. We were all coexisting pretty well. Obviously, there was a little bit of drama, but not much. And
Yeah.
even if people drank, nobody had a drinking problem. Nobody had none of that. But obviously, we got a lot of people. When you got vets, you obviously got people that are a little older. So a lot of people in the house, they got wives, they got kids, and it was tough on everybody. But we kind of just leaned on each other, and we just motivated each other. I mean, we're already here for 8 weeks. We might as well grind it out, and we did. We did. Everybody was getting work in. Everybody was going hard. Sticking to their diet, training good, doing extra work, drilling, whatever the case may be, and playing a whole lot of cards, a lot of
A
cards, a
lot
lot
of
of
cards.
cards in the pool.
That's funny. Um, I had to ask you, how did it feel to be selected as Conor McGregor's #1 pick?
Oh, it felt great, man. It felt great. It was really reassuring for me, but at the same time, I'm big on the law of attraction and visualization. So to me, I had seen that moment happen a million times in my head. So when it came true, it was slightly anticlimactic, but at the same time, it was a big it was a big sense of, I wouldn't say relief. I'd say more so like I was just thankful. I was really thankful, and I was really proud of myself in that moment. But I knew that the work was just beginning. It didn't. That was just a glorified number, because at the end of the day, I still had to go out there and prove them right.
Yeah, but it still just says a lot about you, and like for example, seeing footage and training, explosive, on point. It was great to see, and I have to ask you, because we were talking about kind of training, and like you said, you're always staying kind of prepared. You're always doing your road work. You up it up when there's a training camp.
Yeah.
How did it feel to adjust your training once you got there? Because it had to be, to an extent, different.
Yeah, it was definitely different. We still had the 2 training sessions a day, and we had all the resources we could possibly think of and imagine. But the big difference was Connor's training style is a little bit different than mine. I come from a wrestling background, so I like to push it and redline it as much as possible. And that's how I do it. I just rep it out, rep it out, rep it out, go hard. And he has more of a mentally intense approach, where the practices aren't as physically demanding, but they're very, very mentally demanding. So you have to really switch on mentally before you step on the mats for him, because everything about him is about perfection. You have to do it perfect every single rep. And it's not necessarily about doing it fast, doing it hard, or getting a crazy sweat or exerting yourself. It's just doing it right, doing everything purposeful, like with a purpose, and uh, just perfection.
No, love it. And I have to ask, what are the most tedious things living with others? How do you manage to live with other fighters?
Like I said, we were coexisting super well. I met some of the coolest people I've ever met in my life in that house. I still keep in touch with damn near everybody. And it's been really cool. You know, everybody brought their own style, their own flavor. You know, you got the Southern boys. You got Jason Knight and Kerr Hollabaugh making crawfish outside. You know, it's pretty cool, man. You got that going on. You got Connor and his people coming through and making an Irish stew. You got me grilling for everybody, showing them how I do things. You know, everybody was just cooking good food, chilling, like telling crazy ass stories. It was dope, man. I liked it a lot. There's obviously a couple cultural differences, uh, but other than that, not much. It was nice.
Nice. And I want to ask you, let's go back to the training structure when it came to kind of tough during your time. Like how was it kind of constructed, right? Because as you're getting closer to your fight, would it then become, let's say, group practice? Okay, but now you fight, so we have to kind of work. We have to isolate your training and let's say mid work, jujitsu work, wrestling.
Believe it or not, actually, no. A lot of the guys just had to take it upon themselves at the end to get extra work. You know, there's like a 30-minute flex period before and after the practices to like shower and get ready and stretch and whatever else. So typically we would do the practice and then right after we do like a couple rounds of mitts or do game planning or whatever the case may be. A lot of the guys, uh, Connor's way of coaching us was giving us absolutely every resource you could imagine. He brought his massage therapist, his dietitian, his nutritionist, uh his make guy, his boxing coach, his striking coach, his jiu-jitsu coach, his wrestling coach. And he's like, it's all there. Use it. Do whatever you want to do. It's all free. It's all there. Whatever you need, take it. And he opened up every single door for us. So it was really nice to be able to go out there and just, pick what I needed and pick people's brains and see what they thought I needed and be able to be guided in the right direction while I was there. So I definitely felt ready and prepared. Um, it was good. It was a good.
Yeah, and that's something that's often not spoken about, right? Like that championship team mentality. Because I know who Michael Chandler brought great people, but this is a championship team, right?
Yeah.
Even the former boxing coach kind of was brought in, and I think that was amazing.
Yeah, Phil Sutcliffe is the man. Like that dude is a legend out in Ireland. So it was awesome having him there. He's super motivating, just a great guy, and brings out the best in you. You know, he expects a lot, and he pulls it out of you for sure.
Nice. So let me ask you a question. With Rody and the boxing coach, what would you say you enjoy kind of most, like the coaching style? Because they're both one is more Muay Thai based kickboxing, the
Yeah.
other one more boxing. What did you find more attractive to you?
I loved Phil's sessions. Phil, the boxing coach, I loved his sessions as a person. You know, like the way, like how the energy he brings and the energy that he pulls out of you. But on the other tip, you got his head striking coach Owen Roddy, who's just super knowledgeable, and he's also a southpaw, so I got to learn a lot from him and be able to just work different things and add things to my arsenal that I never had seen before or thought about before. So I definitely got to really broaden the spectrum and do a lot of things that I hadn't done before. It was nice.
That's great. And I have to ask you, did you and Connor had a couple of moments? Any moments or interactions that stood out?
Yeah, right after the tryouts, there was a moment where we were leaving practice, like I told you, during this flex period, and everybody was in the locker room, so the cameras went that way, and it was just him and I walking out of the room, and he's like, "No joke, I see gold in your future. I think you're gonna be a world champion one day," and that meant a lot to me because I looked around and there's no cameras, there's nobody there, there's no mic on, like it was one of those things where like I felt like he meant it and it was really cool. And he's just been he was just a good person, a good motivator, a good person to have in my corner. And it's been cool to be able to keep in contact with him and still have that relationship. It's been cool.
That's great. I wanted to ask you, the barber stuff, it surprised many of us. How was it like, even to trim Connor's hair? You were the vibe there. Like how that felt? Please go
um,
ahead.
to me it's like that's what I do, man. If I had to bet my life on one thing, it'd be my barber career. Like I know for a fact that like I'm not like I that's what I do. I've done it since I was 12 years old. To me, that's nothing. And I've cut famous people before. I've done it, but my thing is, no matter who you are, no matter how popular you are, how famous you are, whatever, it doesn't matter. Everybody, when they deserve to feel like a human being when they're in my chair, and that's what I do. You know, I draw out good conversation, I chop it up with people, I talk, I chill, and just get to treat the person as a person. Not treat them like, oh, that's Connor. I didn't think anything else of it, and I think that's why he cared. That's why he liked it. That's why he was cool with it, and it was just cool moment for me, But that I didn't realize people were gonna love that shit that much. I didn't think people were gonna blow it up that crazy, but they did. I mean, people love that shit, and I don't know. Like, to me, it's just a thing, it's just something I do.
Yeah, no, and that's the beauty, right? Because even like Roy was saying, like you're an artist. The tattoo stuff is great. It wasn't touched upon that much, but it's pretty. How long have you been kind of doing this for?
Man, I've been writing since I can remember. Like, I was writing on my desk when I was little. I was drawing everywhere, man. I was doing graffiti, like, out in the streets when I was a kid. Like, I've been into art my whole life. Like, I can't really incriminate myself too much, but I
Yeah,
definitely got
don't do
I
that.
got
Don't
my
do that.
yeah, I got my fair share of stuff out there. But one by one, I'm going out there and covering all the old hag jobs I did when I was a little kid with way cooler stuff now, and everything's all good.
You have all these endeavors. You're tattooing, you're haircutting, you're in the graffiti scene as
Yeah,
well. Like, what motivates you to fight? Like, what drives you to get into the octagon, get hit in the face, risk your health, your mental health? Like, what motivates you when you have all these other things going for you?
man, I only get one life, so like I my life is, like I told you, my life is a movie, and I want it to be the best fucking movie of all time. Like, why would I not do this?
Yeah,
This is who I am. This is what I look like. This is what I've trained my whole life. Like, why would I not do this? Like, my body's capable. I'm able. Why would I not? And I love it. I love competing. I love looking across the cage and seeing someone as an obstacle and beating them. And I love competing. I love winning. I love the feeling of winning. I love the feeling of just going out there and achieving something. And it's like a drug to me, man. I've done it my whole life, and I don't know any other life. I don't know it. So,
I love
uh,
that. I love that
scary
mindset.
about the fact that one day this is gonna be done. But lucky for me, I'm a lot of things other than a fighter as well. So, I got plenty of things to go for after this. But for now, I gotta eat the world, man.
I get it. And I wanted to ask you. You mentioned your brother. Did you get your brother into MMA?
Oh, no. Before we take that any further, I'm gonna let it be known. Like, I did everything I could to tell my brother not to fight. And not
Okay.
because I don't love it, because I know what happens.
Yeah.
Like, you love something this much, you're gonna let it drive you crazy. That's the point. You can't be good without letting it drive you crazy. And I knew that I didn't want him to do this until he was 100% bought in. So I did everything I could to keep him away from it. But now that he's in, he's all the way in, and now I'm gonna be all the way in, helping him with everything that he wants to set out to do. And luckily for both of us, he's been doing his thing, and I'm right there with him in his corner, training with him, chilling, trying to guide him in the right direction. But luckily, he has his own lane.
No, and that's beautiful, right? Because and we get mentors, but as a family member, as a brother, it hits different, right? So shout out to you, man. It was cool to see that. Um, no, man, I'm excited. Kind of see you compete next. You were saying very quickly the jujitsu match. When is it for? It's going to be streamed on UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah. So I have a jiu-jitsu match Friday night. It's gonna be in Detroit. It's gonna be for my home promotion, Lights Out Championship. It's their first crossover with House of Glory, which is Detroit Jiu-Jitsu. It's like a Detroit Jiu-Jitsu competition that's big in the Detroit scene. So they're collaborating on their first ever grappling event the night before their MMA event, which Kevin Lee is fighting on. So hopefully you guys tune in for the 2 days back to back.
And we will.
I got nothing but love for them. So obviously I was in their first Lights Out, so now I want to be in the first House of Glory crossover event. So I had to get a grappling match on there. I have a tough opponent who's actually beat me in the past, so I'm super excited to get that one back. And I'm gonna let him know it's not the same dude. So it'll be cool. It'll be streaming. I don't. It's not on Fight Pass. It'll be on Spectation Sports. So hopefully everybody can tune in and check it out, man. It's gonna be a crazy event. They got some of the best grapplers in the area. It's gonna be fun, man. Super high level guys competing.
No, we're definitely going to be checking it out. looking forward to it. I was going to just say thank you so much. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing your career kind of unfold. I'm excited to see what's going to happen now with because you're kind of mingling within camps, right? Like that new camp, like you mentioned. I saw Bilal and Juliana actually in New York in November, and I had words with Bilal, and one of the things is it's people did not like he's gotten so well, he's champion now, but back then it's just like they didn't give him the love, and that's throughout coaching, throughout time. So more than anything, I'm excited to see kind of your journey kind of unfolds with them now.
Yeah, it's gonna be sweet, man. It's gonna be something great, and you know I have a lot of good people around me, so it's kind of hard not to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, Mando, thank you so much for everything. Hey, we appreciate you.
Hey, thank you guys, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Mando. And then we will have your socials in the description below so people can follow you and tap in with you and see what you're up to. But I love seeing Latinos in MMA, man. We talked about it. We're both, we both have sangre jalisciense. So, we're Hispanics are mainly known for their boxing, right, and everything. But it's cool to see us enter into the MMA world and take it over. So continue doing what you're doing, man. Best of luck.
Thank you guys, man. I appreciate you guys, and thanks for the interview for sure.
Thank you, brother. Keep feeling it, eh?
Hell yeah. Nice to meet you guys, man.
Likewise, brother. We'll be in touch.
Hell yeah. I'll catch you guys. Peace.
All right, later.